entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 7A through D, F, G, and H. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, 7E, Jeremy.
I just had a quick question on this. I noticed there's an addition of a water access fee for parks, and I had a question whether we had already done that for City Hall. There was some discussion on that last year. I'm wondering if you guys can make that connection. And my, I guess the sub point on that would be, would we charge ourselves a water connection fee? Or is this just being passed to Maple Grove as the originator of the water supply?
I just copied us. Can you hear me?
Which page is that?
This is a Maple Grove fee. They come directly from their fee schedule. So it's not something that we had, but is a requirement of the Maple Grove contract.
Have we already connected our city park?
I believe we are connected and we're not subject.
We're the Green Worming House is connected already. I would have to look and see if we paid this or not. I'm guessing if it existed in Maple Grove, we would have had to pay it. But the Green building is connected to water. And any future buildings would be subject to this fee. I don't know when that fee got adopted in Maple Grove. It might be a new fee to this schedule. I'd have to verify that and follow up.
Because it would total about $100,000, I think, for my rough math, based on the size of city park. So I'm just curious what we might be grandfathered in, if we already have a connection, and what we might have to pay in the future as part of the park.
And if you'd like, Maggie's actually joining us virtually tonight. And
Yeah, so the fee schedule, I took the charges, hi Mayor and Council, sorry. So I took the charges directly from the Maple Grove fee schedule, so if there were any additional park connections in the future, then we would have to follow the Maple Grove fee schedule. So it's just so that we make sure that we cover anything that's on that Maple Grove fee schedule going forward.
All right.
So if we expanded the Green building that's down there, we probably wouldn't be subject to it. If we built a new splash pad and new complex, we probably would be, but it would be subject to the fee schedule at that time. So they can amend that, or we can try to negotiate it. My guess is it's set in stone. It's something we should be prepared to.
So we should define sub-parks within the city park? To
Break it
limit
up.
the fee, since it's a per acre fee? Just a thought.
Well, we pay the same connection charge for like a water fountain, well, a water park.
I don't know, but we haven't come across it. We can follow up with some more details, but I don't know if that's a facility. I don't know, we'd have to get clarity on that, because we haven't been charged with it directly. I can find that out and we can relay that.
That'd be something worth noting if we're.
be an important part for our remaster if we need staff together.
I think the primary concern for them, and why it's an elevated cost, is irrigation.
Yeah.
So if you can prove that you're not irrigating or reusing, maybe negotiable. Maybe a drinking zone next to it, but I'm just speculating on that. We can confirm that.
Will that be offset eventually by our own water systems?
If we, like in Northeast, that could be something we look at in Northeast and establish as a fee that we would charge, like the Parks Department. We're not really set up that way, but
But would we be able to tap into our own water instead of using Maple Grove's? Not
Yeah.
once.
yeah,
Our own
yeah. So
water
in
company.
Northeast, we wouldn't be subject to that.
Is that Northeast?
No, city parks go southeast until we, for
Future.
15 to 20 years, we would be subject to the fee schedule and Maple Grove, unless we were to do something different. But there's a decision point about 22 years on whether we brought that feasibility schedule a year ago probably, where we looked at that. There's a the agreement, I think, said 22 more years in southeast. We can renegotiate, we can do something different, we can
working on it.
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just one quick additional comment. I got a note from someone online that they can't hear council or staff. They heard Maggie just fine, but the mics appear to be a little quiet.
We'll work on that. We got that notes and we've been trying to.
Keep us posted. Hopefully it gets. Okay. Do you have any other questions?
I will move to approve the note.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then 7I.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a quick note, we did get some, we did have some feedback from the city attorney that I passed on to the DNR related to their DNR agreement. It's at no cost to us to move forward with them, getting rid of some invasive species. We just wanted to see if they could be flexible on their language just to protect us a bit more. So we're working through that, but would like approval with us to work with the city attorney to finalize that agreement.
So approval of the item with authorization to.
With authorization to work with the city attorney to
I'll make that
finalize the
motion.
language.
Any further, or all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Okay. Through consent, on to planning business. We'll have a public comment opportunity for items 8A, B, and C. We do all do a public hearing in the middle of B there. But for Cook Lake Highland, Rush Creek Reserve, and the potential zoning ordinance amendment.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Anyone joining us virtually, we'll start with those in the room. We do have a couple of folks here, but anyone joining us virtually can press *9 or click reactions and raise your hand, and we'll address you folks right after those in the room. First, I have Steve Mueller. Steve, if you want to go ahead and approach the podium, state your name and address, and we'll go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, just real quick, out of the respect of everybody in the room, if you spoke at the last public hearing, if you could limit the amount of comments.
This is a minute 30.
Appreciate it.
Yep,
If-
thank you.
If I can ask that, thank you.
Yep. Thank you. My name is Steve Mueller, 7474 Fur Lane. Thank you for letting me speak, and again, this will be very brief. The public comment opportunity is always before the presentation, so there's no chance to speak or comment again. Therefore, please let me just comment on last week's United Properties proposal. United Properties presentation implied that you, the council, and us homeowners knew they could pull out if the 60% pre-sold threshold was not met. Some of us reviewed every packet and presentation and did not see that contingent statement. Furthermore, some earlier packets said they would not start building until 60% had pre-sold. However, they never said the Applewood would pull out completely if this threshold was not met. In fact, the opposite was suggested. The narratives promoted the Applewood as a hot property. You cannot build them fast enough. They were building the Applewood in numerous Twin City suburbs and suggested the senior ownership co-op was the future. Last week, you asked United Properties to consider a plus 55 100-unit, 3-story apartment, and they declined. So please approve resolution number 2, approving the added impervious service for the daycare, the memory care expanding from 27 units to 32, but denying the 145-unit rental apartment. Thanks again for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, we have Catherine Drevis.
Catherine Drevis, 6747 Old Sturbridge Drive. I'm here because I was one of the 26 who was all set to buy into Applewood. And over the last year, I spent quite a bit of time out at the site, trying to imagine where my unit would be in Applewood, what I would see, what it was like. And based on that, and based on going to a couple of Applewood open houses, a meet and greet for the Corcoran residents, and 6 information sessions, because you all know I like meetings, right? I met a lot of people over that time. And I think there is, unfortunately, I understand why Applewood pulled out. We knew that from the beginning when I put my $500 down in February of 2022, exactly what the rules were and how it would work. So I did know. And in looking at that site, I think that's a great location for whether it would have been in Applewood, better if it had been in Applewood, but for a luxury apartment building. If you look at the area, it is on the edge of Corcoran. It is set back from the road, and what surrounds it, mostly from the Maple Grove side and across the road, a storage facility and a bunch of townhomes. And I can't see putting in a whole nother slew of small, well, they're not really that small, because that site may be, but homes next to each other, sort of like what's across the road, even on the south side, the Fur Lane on the south side. I think, well, I know from my friends, from myself, there is a market for this kind of rental. St. Therese is not for everybody. I have friends that are in independent living with assisted living, sort of like a St. Therese, and they feel it's too old for them. And my one friend is looking to move out of a Havenwood. She's 80. So there's that. I have friends that have moved out of the single level because they want community. So I think the building is attractive. I think it's well suited to the site. That U-shape puts that street level parking in the center of it. So it hides it sort of from the outside. Cook Lake. Cook Lake is a nice little lake. It does not, as far as I know, have any public access to it. And it is well protected by those wetlands surrounding it. And in fact, the only place you can really see Cook Lake from Corcoran is if you go on that little trail spur. That's not the paved trail, but the little trail spur. Then you see it, and when you see it, you're looking away from where the potential building would be. I think because Applewood was going to have 2-bedroom apartments, and from going to all those information sessions, most of the people I saw were couples looking to move into that building. So I'm not sure.
Catherine, just
Yeah.
so you know, we're just at about 3 minutes.
One more point.
Perfect, yeah.
I'm not sure that there's going to be an appreciable number of more people living in this apartment building because so many of them are small and set up for singles. So I really think you should look at this and approve that apartment building as the original building with the 4 levels. I also feel like this developer has worked hard, and I've been to every meeting. So both planning commission and city council meetings, I think they have worked very, very hard to develop something for that site that's a difficult site. So thank you.
Thank you. I do appreciate your comments.
Those are the 2 comment cards I received in advance. Does anyone in the audience see an opportunity to speak? Anyone joining us virtually, you can press *9 or click raise your hand under reactions. Mayor and council, no one else is raising their hand. And just a quick note, we've heard that some people are having a hard time hearing some folks on the council, so for your microphones there.
Hopefully this is good.
Yeah, I think just a heads up for there, a couple times to having a hard time.
Sounds good.
to the speakers.
Appreciate the notes. Okay, then we will move into 8A.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
got it fixed, but I wanted to highlight a couple of the changes. So in the updated packet, there was a little more discussion about the density ranges, and then there were revisions to two of the resolutions. So for the next slide, the applicant, just as a reminder, is requesting approval of a PUD amendment that has three elements. An increase in the impervious surface coverage from 39 to 39.8, an increase in the memory care units from 27 to 32 units consistent with the preliminary approvals. Separate from the number of units, there is a separate discussion, keep them separate, but there's a separate discussion that's related about what constitutes a unit. As approved, the units did have kitchens, so they were units counting towards our density goal. And then the third change is to change the 100-unit senior co-op to a 145-unit senior apartment with no change to the building or footprint. Next slide. So that shows on the left the approved plan, on the right the proposed plan. The point being there is the difference between the two. Next slide. But at your last meeting, you directed us to prepare resolutions for denial. So we have three resolutions in the packet, all with the same number. The first resolution approves the request as submitted. The second resolution approves the impervious surface amendment and the amendment to increase the number of memory care units from 27 to 32 and denies the request for the apartment amendment. And the third resolution denies all three requests. The next slide. This was one of the things that got updated in the packet. Again, was not in the first packet, which was in the wrong packet. But once we got the right packet, this was in there. The property is guided mixed residential land use, which requires 8 to 10 units per acre. One of the things that's unique to Corcoran is when we did our comprehensive plan a number of years ago, the council created a Corcoran net density number, and that calculation is slightly different from the Met Council density number. And to date, we've never had an issue where it matters, but I want to walk through that a little bit.
Is that a suggestion or a mandate? By
Well,
the-
that's what I'm going to kind of walk through. Because the city formula deducts some things from the net density, so we're using less land to get to our density. So if you use the city formula, which deducts local streets, basically is the difference, this site is allowed 133 to 167 units. If we use the Met Council formula, it's 145 to 181. And then in your packet was a table that showed, depending whether we use the city post-density formula or the Met Council formula, how the different formulas affect density, and also an option about whether we have units in the memory care, or excuse me, kitchenettes in the memory care and count those as units or not. So to your question, Councilmember Bodema, really what the Met Council, the only thing they can really require is that we meet our 3 units an acre
I have a question in the table that's on the graphic right now. There's a line at the bottom where there's 164 units that shows greater than 10 net density. So how do we arrive at the 133 to 167 if we end up over 10 with 164?
I think I have a typo in my report.
Would that have been a carryover from the previous one?
I think it might have been, I apologize. The table is correct, those numbers are not, thank you. I'm looking at the spreadsheet right now. So the actual based on the final plat density numbers, post-development net acreage is 14.19 in our formula, which means 114 to 142, which the table shows correctly. The Met Council density is based on 18.06, which is 144 to 181. So I think I just have an error that you can correct it on. I apologize for that.
Right. Might be,
18.06 acres.
oh, that's what the Met Council's net density.
I'm
So,
trying to stay caught up on all the numbers, so.
Yeah.
I think my quick math would be using the city's formula, the 142 units total to get to 10 units an acre, even with 19 single-family homes, it'd be 123 other apartments or whatever. That helps.
Yeah, so I'd like to delete those first two bullets off this slide and just look at the table. I'm sorry for that.
Can I ask a question?
Go.
So if we have a more dense area, see that like bank density. So for example, if we built a 20-story building with 700 apartments, could we then have the rest of Corcoran be one house per net acre? In theory, hypothetically?
Yeah, in theory, Mr. Mayor, when we do our comprehensive plan, I caveat this with the Met Council changes the rules a little bit every cycle. But in this last cycle, for the number of units that we had built in the previous comp plan cycle, over 3 units an acre, and we were over, so say it was 100 units over, what we needed to meet 3 units an acre, we got to bank that against our formula that shows how future development will meet 3 units an acre. So it does do that, meaning if we had units to bank, you could reduce some of the low-end density ranges to get to.
Does that go all the way out? Like, if Musa extends the all the western border, is the formula based on the town?
No, the formula is based only on the Musa area, so right now our
But if the Musa line goes all the way,
Then it would,
it
yeah.
never will, it'll take a long time.
Right.
Don't get nervous, anybody watching. But so long as Corcoran's Musa area fits the Met Council requirement of 3 per, if we're way ahead, we can slow down and have other developments be less compact. All the way from here to the end of time.
Yes, I think so. So in
They're
the
not like
Musa-
vacation days where if in 5 years we don't use them, they go away.
Well, like I said, the Met Council tweaks it a little every time we do a new comp plan. But yes, for example, if we were ahead of the game and we had banked some units, when we do the next comp plan, you might decide, or whoever the council is, might decide that instead of low-density residential being 3 to 5, it's going to be 2 to 5. And then we have to test the math that the amount of acreage at that 2 to 5 added up
think about, so that's where we get to use it in that scenario, as opposed to a development coming in that's 2.8, we'd still need it to be 3 because of Met Council requirements for each plat, but at that point where we're reassessing our comp plan is when we could kind of bank those.
Right,
Gotcha.
right. And we've talked about this before. This is Kendra's opinion. But as long as our plat monitoring is at 3, if you had a subdivision that came in at 2.9, I just wouldn't flag it for them. I think we're pretty home.
Right.
So we could just put, just thinking aloud here, having kitchenettes, we'd be able to bank those kitchenettes against future density ordinance, just think about that. That's all, that was my question.
So it's good practice to be in the density range, but if you were slightly outside one way or the other, as long as at the end of the year we do our flat monitoring and show we're still at 3 units an acre, I feel like we're at.
We should have put kitchenettes in the storage unit.
No, that's a whole nother issue. Put them everywhere. I think I just may have one other slide. Yeah, which is just your options. And again, if there was 3 options, approve impervious and memory care, and 3 is to deny them all. But as always, if you have questions and need more information, you have the option to table it. I should say, Mr. Mayor, as I suspected somebody might ask, if it goes down that path, we did extend the project review period an additional 60 days through the end of July, if there was some more information that we needed.
Great.
We did that, or was it requested by the builders?
No, we did it. We used our, by right, every project comes in and has a 60-day clock, and we
Yeah.
have the right to extend it an additional 60 days.
Yeah.
That was us.
So if we, so in theory, if the builder would ask for an extension, we would have used our little time off clock there. So we don't have another extension.
Past
Yeah.
June unless the applicant wants.
Fair enough, okay.
Any other questions for Kendra, or do you want to hear from the applicant?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Steph Griffin with Trek. Thank you for your time tonight. I'd like to just take a step back. I'll try to be succinct because we've clearly talked about this before, but I just want to talk about how we came to this PUD amendment application before you tonight. And in addition, I'd like to be clear on our intention for this PUD amendment. We discussed at our work session in February and then again 2 weeks ago. The issue we're working to solve on this amendment application is that the memory care and the senior co-op as approved we're finding to not be marketable, saleable sites. And in addition, the memory care buyer that after our work session we did reapproach and re-engage into the project has expressed that they don't want to proceed unless there is a senior multifamily component to the site. So our goal is to create a solution that as closely aligns with the original approvals of this project, retains the original uses and character of the project, and the demographics to reach, as well as reflects the work session feedback and direction received from council, and also very importantly the overall neighbors' desires. Cook Lake Highlands development team has consistently sought to envision, create, and deliver a project that meets the goals and principles of the city's 2040 comprehensive plan, aligns with the mixed residential zoning district, using the PUD tool that provided by the city. The preliminary plat was approved in August of 2021 in order to meet these density requirements, as we talked about the kitchenettes. And I thought Kendra's table was helpful in looking at that. And that was, when you look at that staff report, that was at 7.8 units per acre using the Met Council's density calculations, that preliminary plat approval. And then the city's calculation on that was 9.2 units per acre. If you go and look at the final plat and PUD approval from March of 2022, that is, the city's density calculation comes to 10.3 units per acre, and Met Council's at 8.1. Really, the goal of this was to just have the clear, be able to compare where we were at from final plat to what we're requesting today. At the February 23rd work session, the intent of this meeting was to have a conversation surrounding the issues we've been experiencing with our buyers and as a result of market changes. We did have a productive conversation with council and received feedback from council after our hour-and-a-half meeting. We appreciate the time any of you have taken in reviewing the recording of this meeting, because we did feel it was how we came to this amendment application before you tonight. And we proposed the build for rent project changes to the memory care, as well as the 145 unit senior rental Amira project. At the conclusion of this hour-and-a-half work session, council asked Trek to outline the conclusions, which we reiterated as no single-family rental was desired on this site, no lot smaller than 50 feet, and that council could support a 145-unit rental multifamily if it was senior. And then what's before you tonight, we don't need to reiterate all of what's before you. Kendra did a good job at that. But I just want to note that excluding the kitchenettes does align with what Met Council's dwelling unit definition is, as well as what St. Therese was approved for right next door here. I do just want to make a point, as we've discussed the 55 versus 62 age ranges or age differences as well. The 55, and Kendra explained it in her staff report, or when we were in discussions at the last meeting, but that is the city's, that definition is using the city's definition of senior, which the current approvals are for a senior co-op, as well as the explaining the 62 age was not necessarily what the, that was a HUD definition that Applewood was going to use for their financing. That was not something that was, that was absolutely discussed as if it was as the Applewood requirement for their HUD financing. We've met with the neighbors, including those that spoke in opposition, to try and understand and discuss their concerns. The approved PUD, I just want to point out that it does establish and provide significant public benefits, which is important to recall in the context of this conversation, as well as how this PUD and proposed amendment would continue to align with the underlying zoning and meet the goals of the comprehensive plan. More importantly, this includes the protection of natural resources as outlined in the comprehensive plan goals. This project has 8.37 acres of open space dedicated to the city of Corcoran. If you use those density, those different acreage numbers, if you use the city's post-development acres at 14.19, you get, that's 61, almost, that's 61.2% of open space. Using Met Council's, it's 48%. That would be well above any of the proposed PUD ordinance changes currently that council's been discussing. And in fact, this plat wouldn't actually meet that requirement for the point system being under 30 acres. This project also meets other important goals for the city, providing a mix of housing types, expansion of residential options, have collaborated extensively with neighbors, both Maple Grove and Bass Lake Crossing, providing part of that is providing trail access, including Maple Grove's public trail coming off of Edgewater's project. The intersection collaboration and execution of the intersection, including easements for utilities and access, an infrastructure siting of Lot 2, Block 2, which is the dedicated City of Corcoran booster pump station, oversizing of the city's infrastructure, providing right-of-way for County Road 10 improvements, restoration of site, which is the stabilization of the ravine, increased landscaping, site amenities, and increased architectural quality. We did note in our last meeting that Robert Thomas Homes is buying the 19 single-family lots, and we are very excited about that builder as a very high-quality builder, local builder. In exchange for that, the flexibility was allowed for the signage, the lot size on the villa lots, side yard setbacks, maximum building height, maximum impervious surface. We reduced the stall length on the parking, as well as a ability for a taller 4-foot fence, taller than 4-foot fence in the front setback. In conclusion, Cook Lake Highlands with the proposed PUD amendment continues to align with the mixed residential zoning and the city's comprehensive plan. The development team has spent extensive time and consideration and care of determining the best path forward with the changing economic environment, listened to the feedback provided by the council and the neighbors in an effort to propose an amendment that can maintain the intention and use of Cook Lake Highlands within its current guiding and zoning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions?
Steph, could you clarify, you touched on it about the HUD financing of one being age 62, but I think you need to clarify that there wasn't an intent for an age restriction of 62 on the property, right? It was approved as senior living, so it was approved from council as 55. Is that correct?
That's correct. We did not have 62 as an age limit in our approval.
Thank you. I'm happy to stand for other questions, or we have other team members here as well.
The only thing I'm confused about is the question about changing it from what it was to what it could be as a rental. I never recall saying yes to an increase of rental units or living units by 47%. I don't recall that.
I'm not saying you said yes, I'm just saying that the end of the conversation was that the council would consider
Rental,
senior if it
but
remained rent.
not an increase of 47, 45, whatever the number is in unit. I do not recall
I don't think
saying
they're not saying we said that.
Well-
They're only saying we'd be open to
But
we'd be open to rental,
Yeah,
that's
not-
what I'm saying. But in
We
what
never-
she just presented, she
It was-
just said we approved 45.
I never said you approved it. I said you
No, no,
could
no.
consider
I
the
actually
proposal.
I was the one that said it.
One person, if I could,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Bingo, and then
you just said, we said 145. We did not, we said we would,
I
I
said-
said I had no indifference between whatever, between ownership and rental. I never said, and I don't think this group ever said, taking it from 100 to 145, 147, whatever the number is. We never said that. And I'm
I
just
said
saying
you
it-
could support
We could
the Mira
support
that
rental.
we,
We could support rental, not an increase in one.
okay. The minutes that were approved tonight don't specifically state that conclusion that we got to on that night, so, I think we have to, but I'm not trying to argue.
I'm not agreeing or disagreeing, I'm not arguing either. We said we would consider rental, not an increase in numbers.
Okay.
And then we've taken 27 units, changed it to 32 because of an architectural problem. I still don't understand all of that. When you add the 32 to this number, in simple math, and I'm sorry I'm such a simpleton, we are way over the density. I still don't quite understand, but I still haven't made my decision. So,
Is there any change to the footprint size of either the memory care or the Apple Village
No,
building?
no. Can, Counselor Varenkamp, could I please address what you were asking Stephanie about? Would you be okay with that?
I'm fine with it, I just
Okay.
don't, we never said increasing the quantity by 47, 45%, whatever the number is, and then we abolish the memory care number. We never said that in that conversation.
Can I just repeat what I said? I believe Steph was not saying that you said it. I was asked to reiterate what I heard the council give me direction on that evening. And it was me that stood up here and said, I heard you say you did not want single-family rental and you did not want the small lots. But that you would be willing to consider 145 units of senior Amira. That,
Never heard the
that,
number.
okay, but that's
Never
what
heard the
I,
number.
and we can go back and look at it.
I know, and
So but my point, Mr. Counselor, is that I said it, you didn't, and we weren't saying that you did, but that was that's all I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
So again, my biggest thing is how do we just erase the 27 or 32 memory care units and attach it to this other parcel? There's significant traffic into a memory care unit, whether it be relatives visiting or just general care of those folks. It is a number of traffic and those kind of things, and going from 100 to 145, I'll use now, into this home or into this place. I'd like the comments from the one person that was interested in the Apple edition of going from 2 people to, it turns into a lot more ones and stuff like that. Again, I understand that, but the other thing that bothers me too is this intersection is not going to be signalized at all. Is that true?
If it doesn't proceed.
101 and,
It doesn't, I mean, this project doesn't trigger the warrants. At some point in the future, it may be signalized, but not associated with this project.
again, it's something else I probably missed. I thought it was gonna be signalized,
Where are you talking about?
the intersection of
Which intersection?
whatever the heck road it is, Brockton
Brockton.
Road, Brockton Lane, 101, whatever we're
Oh,
calling
yeah,
all
the
that.
new Brockton,
Yeah,
Brockton too.
yes,
and County Road.
yeah.
Didn't the preliminary plot approval, wasn't it for 32 units of memory care? So it was a typo between the preliminary and final.
Yes. Yep. And we called that out at the final, that it had been reduced. So I think it was a miscommunication between the architect and the development team.
Really do.
To me, that number is off the table.
Yeah, it's only about the 145, 100.
And personally, kitchenettes and memory care don't make sense to me. Taking them out actually probably benefits the city because it limits the future use of the building. It could become a halfway house or something in the future, per se, if it was ever sold or developed instead. Kitchenettes and so by taking them out, you limit future use that you definitely wouldn't want to see today.
Point.
We get to use the, so 145 apartments with no kitchen.
No, that's the memory care.
Oh, the 27,
32.
Yeah, so
32.
that's
the 32, I mean, so I was just advocating for kitchenettes a minute ago, and now you're saying we shouldn't have kitchenettes there.
I think taking them out limits future use of that building.
Potentially, yeah.
Specifically what it's for now.
Yeah. We don't get to have conversations, by the way, outside of this.
This is it.
This is it. So I couldn't call Alan and ask him his opinion on this beforehand. Just FYI, this is all fresh. I know, so that's good.
I'm going, now I can go with either that way or this way, and I was thinking if the memory care doesn't make it, is it a secondary assisted living option to the owners? If it's plumbed for those kind of things. We're thinking of so many different things to put a good product in our city, so.
Could be something we definitely don't want. In the future, I'm saying, not
I
now, I'm
agree.
saying, if it was,
In the future, the building could
everyone
just
has
be
their
torn
memory
down
in
and
the
something
future,
else
and there's
put
no
up.
need for memory care, it could become a halfway house or
Right.
something
Yep.
that you don't want, or, so.
I guess that's a good point.
Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I just make a comment to Councilor Varenkamp's comment about if it could be, just remember that there are 2 different operators and owners between the memory care and the Amira. So they're,
No, I'm aware of
yeah,
that.
I just was,
I'm thinking of the memory care right now with what
sure,
Commissioner Shore, Chair, Councilmember Schultz just brought up, and
yeah,
Councilmember Bottom, if the memory care doesn't go,
right.
and we're already, the condominium didn't go, whatever usage is still gotta come back to us, and we need to approve it and stuff.
we don't, it's not something we want either.
We have put the neighborhood through it.
We understand.
If we put 145 apartments there and y'all don't rent them out, are you gonna come back and ask us, we want market rate apartments and we want it open up to anybody? Is that gonna happen?
We
It just keeps snowballing.
heard you loud and clear at the
I'm
work
speaking
session.
very, my opinion and
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that would.
I'm
be
all for
Understood.
change,
I think that would maybe
How many
be
more
something
times will this change?
smart for us to clarify right now,
Mhm.
that that's probably something we're not interested in, if that hypothetical happening.
I think we've already said that a bunch
Yeah,
of times.
but
That's
I'm-
why
Yep.
we have what we have in front of us.
True. Yep, but just to be extra.
Yeah.
And Jeremy?
I was just gonna chime in, so I wanted to thank Kendra for clarifying the math. Where I'm at the moment is, based on the size of the parcel, they can go up to 142. I don't particularly prefer one use versus the other on the site. So I guess my ask would be, with 142, what would you want to do? Would you want to keep the memory care? Would you want to lose the memory care and put those units into the apartment? Would you want to modify what we're doing with single family? But I'd like to see a proposal that would get to the maximum number of units and try to debate that, because I feel like that's where we're gonna likely end up.
And that 142 you're getting to is including, that's total units for the site?
Including whatever we do with the memory care, count it or don't count it, depending on the kitchenette.
Okay.
19 single family, and then whatever is left over would be for the site.
Gotcha.
So you want the number to be 142.
'Cause I think that
That's
gets
the
into
biggest we
10.
should entertain based on code.
That gets
Well,
into 10.
I believe the final plat approval was for 100, I'm sorry, preliminary plat was for 154 units. And then at the change with the final plat. So I think what, as Kendra discussed it, it's very unique because situation hasn't come up. So I do believe that the Met Council number was the number being used. And I'm just, if you look at that, the Met Council number, if you use the 18.07 at 8.1.
Just real quick, gentlemen, I need you to be quiet. They've been respectful to listen to you. We are listening to them right now. Thank you.
So I understand, but I think it's I was trying to provide the apples to apples comparison of the 8.1 is using the Met Council number. So I think it gets tricky because the post-development number was at 10.3 units per acre for the current approved plan. And we were at 146 units on the final plat approval. Sorry, I put together my own little thing to try and keep it straight. And 154 units at the preliminary plat approval. So it's,
154 minus the Jeremy's plan, 154 minus 19 single families, 135 apartments. So that's kind of where you're going.
I don't think we should go outside of the allowable density range. We can maybe have a debate about what the right number for that should be. See if we can have that discussion in the past.
but I think we already were.
I think it's still need to stay within the range. I don't want to set a precedent if we're gonna exceed the density that we put in our comp plan and put in our code for the sake of maybe someday being able to negotiate something different with that council.
No, I'm saying in the future, we could have the density of 2.7 if we have bank density.
I'm very much in favor of being able to reduce our low density range, but that's not gonna happen until 2030.
Fair enough, okay. I just wanted your, sorry.
And I think I understand what kind of one of your points was, that your existing approval is for the different distribution of them, but it's for 146.
That's the
units
final
total.
plat.
What's that?
Yes, that's the final plat.
Or with the 32, the change
And-
from 27 to 32, 151, which would get us above that 10 a little bit, but it's not as significantly above 10 as what the
think it's important to note, well, two things. The units are within the Met Council range. They were not within your range in your final plat approval. So and then the other point to make is that the memory care units, I just want to kind of strike on this again, that the memory care units, whether, you know, in the St. Therese, they're not counted as, you know, St. Therese has 206 or 207 units, and I believe 99 of them are, if I'm remembering right, the independent that are counted as units, the remainder assisted and memory care are not counted as units in that site as well. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
We can't compare this to, they're different
The target density is.
densities and stuff, so we can't compare, we can't say something different because this is a downtown kind of deal and it's under all different. Help me speak smartly, would you, Kendra? Please?
It is a different land use classification.
Right.
And I just wanna, if I could clarify one thing, and I did say we have the ability, I think, to use our definition of net density or the Met Council. However, I just wanna be clear, when we report to the Met Council, we have to use theirs. Councilmember Nichols, you said something about the comprehensive plan of the Met
Okay.
Council, and I just wanna be clear. We will have to use their formula when we report, we do that annually. But I think, whether we wanna use our formula with a top end of 142 or their formula at a top end of 181, within your discretion. And how you treat the memory care, I think is also in your discretion relative to that kitchenette. I think, how we treated St. Therese is different. In this case, they chose to put that in there to meet the minimum density range under the old plan.
When we assess other projects, do we typically score against the Met Council definition of net density or the corporate definition of net density?
We use the Met Council definition.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Does that change your numbers then?
It would.
And if you could explain what your numbers would change to, I'd love to hear.
I think Ken was 181, was that the top end?
Correct.
Let's slot them in.
But then 145 memory care for the unit.
What is it?
145.
Yeah, that's what's on here. That was the number Jeremy talked about, getting the number of apartments to 129, or,
Yep.
yeah.
So your original, you were talking about a few minutes ago about limiting to 154. Now using the Met Council definition, are you not limited to that anymore?
I think we should treat it consistent with what we do with others. So I guess there's not necessarily a hard limit in the sense that if this were coming in new, the number we would be seeking would be the Met Council, not the corporate number. So then we should decide, is there value in holding what we previously approved? And it sounds like from what the chatter that I've heard at this point, it's not necessarily.
I mean, I don't think the what we previously approved was the 154. Really don't see, I don't see a reduction of 10 units on an apartment building benefiting much. Because it's not, doesn't limit the floor. The floor plan doesn't change. So what are we gaining from it? I bet go with John's idea of banking density.
Not making an impact in terms of how anything visibly.
There's nothing visibly changing except for likely bigger.
the,
The apartments are gonna be smaller, you're gonna have more windows and a different landscape view.
Oh, I'm saying, if we
Take 11
take
apartments
11
away.
apartments out, in theory, I think the apartments are like 1,100 square feet.
And it could be bigger, you're saying.
100. Yeah, that's, you asked what the,
Yeah, but that changes your rental cost per floor, right? So if you're talking senior living, now you're going from,
I'm not arguing the point, I'm suggesting that the apartments would be bigger, that's all. Not advocating.
all the alarm ones, and they could go in and stare down from the 10th floor, so. It would probably have a positive benefit.
Did you have something else you wanted to add?
No, I will leave you alone.
No.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions you want to go over, or other areas? I think we've kind of gone over the big areas of discussion or concern. I want to back a motion.
I didn't vote for the original PUD, but I'll make a motion for the resolution 2023-33 for the PUD as written.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Let's review what's written.
Then let's get, all
There are three.
Yeah, all seconded just to get to that for additional discussion. So go ahead, John.
Resolution is written as nine.
It was a resolution.
We have three resolutions.
You're,
yeah.
so you're the approval.
Yes.
Okay.
There'll be option number one in the packet for anyone who's following online.
I asked to have it be reviewed, I don't need it.
Okay. So we had a motion and a second. Any other further discussion?
I just want to raise the point that we did get some resident feedback in favor of the approval between the last meeting that we didn't have previously. When everybody asked for this to be negated and not approved.
I will second that. It matters a lot. And there was a long time ago, we were gonna pave the road, and there was one person that voted, or that came and spoke for it, and like 26 that voted against it. And you better believe that has some impact, that's what we did.
And we appreciate all the feedback we can get. Definitely. Anything else? We'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
And abstain.
I will abstain.
So 3-1-1. Everyone a second to line that out.
For council record, I only abstained because nothing really came out.
We'll go on to 8B. Are we starting just with the continued public hearing? Is that the best process-wise? Thanks for coming, guys.
There's more council.
Anything worthwhile?
Not too exciting.
You already paid for the admission tickets.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, we're a long ways intermission yet.
Okay. Well, now we'll wait for staff.
That was odd. That was an odd. Wait.
Okay. Sure. Go on to 8B and go over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Our next item, Kendra will go into,
Yeah, I really just have a couple slides. We have a final plat, final PUD plan for Rush Creek Reserve, third edition. It is, 18 homes on 4.6 acres in the northwest corner. And I want to do a quick presentation because we have a public hearing tied to this. It's a vacation of a blanket drainage and utility easement over this outlot C of Rush Creek Reserve Second that's being platted. So if you go to the next slide, you can see in the light green on the upper left, that is the third edition. Right now, that's outlot C of the second edition has a blanket easement. So the applicant is asking that that be vacated and that new easements will be deeded with the new plat next. In your packet tonight, and that is the image of the easement that's being vacated and just the area of the plat. There is a revised development contract, and the change in that is the one that went out in the packet was The developer had overpaid their TLAC fees in the second edition. And so we were going to carry those over as a credit to the fourth edition, but they did ask that they be refunded. So the third edition is paying the current TLAC fee, credited against the credit, and then we'll cut the check for that and be even Steven. So that is the revised DA in your packet that we're asking to approve with that final plat. This is a public hearing on the vacation.
Perfect, thank you. So we'll go ahead and continue the public hearing.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, anyone who wants to speak in the public hearing can come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Or if you're joining us online, can press *9 if you're on a phone, or click reactions and raise your hand if you're on an electronic device. Mayor and Council, at this time, no one is raising their hand for the public hearing.
Perfect, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, on to the item itself of third edition. Do we have any presentation for that, or? Sure. Perfect.
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
to
Yeah.
All three of them?
Resolution 2023-34, 35, and 36?
Yes.
Perfect. Any further discussion?
I would like to propose striking the removal of the cul-de-sac island from resolution 34.
Striking the removal of the
Number 5, I would.
So keeping the cul-de-sac.
To keep the cul-de-sac island, just because, I've said this before, I've observed in places where we have cul-de-sac islands, it's kind of a popular neighborhood amenity, and kids are, racing bikes around them. It's good for the livability of the neighborhood. I know it's a little harder on it, but people have to get a little more clever with their snow plowing. But it does help to make the city better and more welcoming to the residents. So I propose modifying that resolution to strike.
Could you say again where that is in the resolution?
Number 34, item 5, the plan shall be revised to eliminate the cul-de-sac island from Xyloid Avenue.
Kevin tried to speak that.
Did we eliminate the?
Just in Kevin's handwriting on it.
At least that's the digital one. Maybe it's changed in the paper copy.
Yeah, it's really indifferent, so why we put that in there was, since this was approved, the Tavera one, we removed it. There has been no other cul-de-sacs yet in this one, so we didn't know if that was a broad policy change or not. And so we wouldn't have brought it up if they're ready with a cul-de-sac, because we want everyone in the neighborhood to be consistent. So if there's another cul-de-sac in the fourth edition, whatever we do here, we'll recommend that similar approach for the next one. So it's really a clarification, was that a Tavera only thing? Do we want to keep with the original approval thing? We just wanted to highlight it. It's really indifferent. It's two cul-de-sacs. It's completely your choice. We just wanted to raise that attention because there was an opportunity to remove it if we were shifting away from it as a policy. So I'm not gonna, it's just, you can debate it. I'll answer questions. It's really indifferent. It was just raising your attention.
Rest of the council's thoughts on it? I don't feel super strongly either way.
I really don't like them, to be honest with you. I get what you're saying about it's the gathering place, people go out and sit on the grass and stuff, but to me, it's more of a concern for maintenance in the wintertime, upkeep. You run the risk of, if you do have a snowplow there in the winter, seeing kids that may be out playing on it as your car drives around it, the line of sight issues. I don't know that they had as much value as what they're worth, honestly.
I can see that opinion, but I think if you fast forward 40 years, when the trees they plant in the middle are big and mature and shape the whole cul-de-sac, it'll be a different calculus. So I think with a long-term mindset, I'm envisioning it being.
I live on a cul-de-sac now, right? I'm at the end of the street and I've got 5 kids that's on the cul-de-sac. They still play in it no matter what, whether there's something there or not, so.
I'm personally, I'm not a fan of those islands. Just knowing what I know from
probably would,
You have to do it friendly right now.
yeah.
Can we,
And then
can
vote
we,
on the friendly?
Pat, can we vote on the,
Here's what I'd recommend. We temporarily withdraw the motion. Jeremy, if you'd like to make a motion on that, you can vote that up or down and then remake the motion based on that. We have on the floor right now.
okay.
So we,
Before we go to that trouble, who would vote to remove it? To remove it.
To remove the strike, to leave the mandatory. Double negative. I would not change my second.
yeah, I think I agree with that.
I would vote for it as written.
So I think would pass. So would you still like us to go through the
No.
vote or no? So then we do have still the motion in the second, or do you want to remake those motion and second? Who made them initially?
As written.
Want to remake those motions?
No, we don't have to, we already did it.
There was some discussion.
Kendra's shaking her head
There
down.
was some discussion whether or not.
There was
to
discussion.
amend it.
I would have to
No
make a friendly
actual-
amendment,
yes.
not,
And no
Jerry
one
can't
was-
make a friendly amendment to my motion.
And no one has withdrawn it. So I think.
Okay, yeah, because
that's-
Jeremy asked for.
We had some
okay,
discussion on it, but I don't think we actually made any
Gotcha.
changes.
So I'm not gonna undo it.
Gotcha.
So if I could add a little bit more discussion, I'll try not, I want to get out of here, just need some time tonight. Do we have everything fixed and everybody's happy across the street that butts up against Rush Creek? All the water drainage and everything? I'm talking to neighbors that are currently,
I haven't heard a complaint for
Okay.
a while there.
we've got all of the
Bonding's
water
gone.
issues all the way down through the Foy property and everybody's,
I think it's a lot better than it was pre-project. At this point now, there's restoration of the turn lanes and all that. Nothing's accepted completely on any of those, but I think it's functioning as designed. But,
and what I'm talking about is the stuff that butts up.
Yep, there was
Way
a
back
pond
here in the
area
corner,
here.
everything is fixed, you guys have worked hard, I'm just asking, because
Yep, I think the turn lanes corrected that. The storm got put in with the second edition. Yes, I think those concerns, I think most of the houses inside it. Again, I haven't heard anything. I think the site's, I mean, there's some dead trees and that kind of typical stuff that hopefully this year gets going. But I haven't personally had a complaint on that site for a while.
okay, and then silt fence management, we've got a lot all over the place, and there's a number of silt fences down over there.
We have, yeah, we do.
Is anyone working on that?
Yeah, so our responsibility is to make sure they're doing it. We have a full-time person through our engineering team that sends out emails.
Okay,
So we're covering our permit needs and doing what we're supposed to do as a city. And so I don't, there's items on those action lists for the developer to take care of.
okay,
And they're in the purpose.
That's all I have. thank you, Kevin.
So we did have the motion second and the discussion, so we'll, anything else, have to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Four to one. Thank you all. And on to 8C.
Mayor, Council, Natalie is joining us virtually in just a moment, so pull up her slide. One moment, Natalie, I'm pulling up.
Did you say you're pulling up the slide? I'm sorry, I'm having troubles hearing.
Say that again?
Did Jess say she was going to pull up the slides?
Yes.
She's working on it, and we're doing some audio
Awesome.
mixing.
Yeah,
Ye-
so we
Yeah,
have
I
had
can
some-
hear the mayor, but everyone else is a little fuzzy.
So I think it could just be the closeness of the mics, but Natalie, if you wanna go ahead.
Yeah, so this is an ask of staff for the council to consider an amendment to the nonconformities section of our zoning ordinance. And you can go ahead and go to the second slide. Simply, we have a portion of the section that deals with nonconforming structures, And we have some allowance for administrative approval, but due to a definition I had added when I did a rehaul of our nonconformity section in 2021, our power as staff to approve things like adding a porch or a deck onto your front side if you have a non-conforming setback has now become very limited. And so we had a variance last year that we approved as a city, and the Planning Commission at that time had also put it on their priority list to add this, to add more administrative approval powers, so that when someone who has is a non-conforming structure for no other reason but their yard setback, to allow them to have an expansion that is no closer to the property line than the existing structure, but allowing for a structure to be there that wasn't there prior. But again, this current definition in front of you right now is preventing that interpretation to be allowed. It was once allowed in the past. Next slide. So again, this is the area where we have some administrative approval process, and it ties back to the definition on the previous slide, that's why the interpretation changed, because we added the definition on the previous slide. Next slide. And so staff, it'd be a very quick ordinance change. We would just recommend specifically removing yard setback from the first paragraph of the administrative approval process, and adding a second paragraph that's specific to expansion of buildings found to be non-conforming only by reason of a yard setback, and they may be permitted provided the proposed expansion is no closer to the property line than the existing structure. Next slide. So the proposed language would apply to any structural expansion, and the council could decide to further refine the language to only apply to porches and decks. However, staff would still be authorized to deny requests when the expansion would result in a negative outcome to adjacent properties or public rights of way. So those unhappy with the denial always have the choice of appealing staff's decision to city council. There would be a process for that. And I do believe that the broader language proposed will help to avoid unnecessary variance applications later on, and is consistent with the previous interpretation of the administrative approval authority prior to the ordinance change in 2021. Next slide. So again, staff is asking for you to authorize us to proceed with an amendment to section 1030.010 of our zoning ordinance, and if so approved, the public hearing would be scheduled for June 1st with the city council decision scheduled for June 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
What variance request was this?
Sleigh law, I think.
So the slate law variance request, and
With their deck
Natalie
on
can
a porch.
speak to, we have had another request since.
That was the one on Hebert Road.
Yes, it was the slave law variance off of Ebert Road, I think it was.
Yeah.
He actually proposed taking the deck 2 feet back from where it previously was, but wanted to expand it horizontally, wanted to basically have a wraparound porch, and there were several areas where that would have been considered an expansion that couldn't comply with the setback. So I think as a city, all sympathized with that situation and decided to go ahead and grant that variance. And we're now having some other non-conforming structures that are in a very similar situation that are that would have to go through the variance process, and that it does create a financial and timeline burden for them to be able to complete that kind of upgrade on their house.
So, can I ask a clarifying question? This administrative change wouldn't have changed the process we went through for the variance on the deck on Ravinia, right? Okay.
I believe the question was, this wouldn't change the variance that was granted, the process for the variance granted for the deck in Ravinia, was that the question?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was completely different. That was not a non-conforming structure. This is specific to non-conforming structures, and it's based on their existing setback line. So we wouldn't grant anything that further encroaches into the setback. We're just saying they can go up to that line where their existing structure is.
It's been 2 years. We haven't had a second one.
And they almost got here.
Can I make a motion?
Yeah, sure. Or it's really support to direct staff to proceed.
I'll second his direction.
Perfect. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Thanks, Devin.
Thank you.
On to unfinished business. We have 9A and 9B. 9A is, or we'll have public comment opportunity first, and then we'll go into 9A.
Anyone who's in the audience can approach the podium, state your name and address. Anyone joining us virtually can press star 9, click reactions and raise your hand. Mayor and council at this time, no one is raising their hand.
Okay. We'll go into 9A.
Mayor and council, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy here, and they do have some, they do have logo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kathy Keene, Administrative Services Director. On April 14th, back in 2022, council requested staff to write a proposal for simplifying the city's current logo. The logo is very detailed, and the colors have really become very hard to replicate, especially looking forward. To place it on our future water tower will be really hard to put that on the water tower. So staff has provided 3 paths for council to choose from. First, an online service graphic designer, 99 Design. An experienced graphic designer, Karen Call from Call Design, she's located in Hanover. And then a student graphic designer, Cameron Friedrich, who is from the city of Corcoran. The request of staff is we are recommending council select a graphic designer and authorize staff to proceed with a new city logo design project. We have examples of each of the designers' work, if you would like to see it. It's up on the screen right now. So this first one is 99 Designs. The most recent one they've done that we are, another city logo would be the city of New Brighton. They have other Minnesota work which is included. You just, thanks, go through the slide. Different variations, but they're all located in Minnesota, these ones that I showed for example. And our next one is, there we go, Call Design Group, that's Karen Call. She also has multiple logos that she's done within the area. The most recent one would be Spring Lake Park. And our third is our student designer, Cameron. She also has multiple logo designs. The project itself, once council decides on a designer, will take anywhere from 2 to 4 months. The costs vary. 99 Design, we could do the project from $300. It goes all the way up to about $1,200, but we could do it in the $300 to $500 range. Call Design, they have given us an estimate of $3,000 to $3,500, and Cameron has given us the estimate of $3,250. Each one has very similar rights. We would get control and rights to the design. They would be ours in different variations and different versions for us to use. A lot of the city's logo designs are currently digital. So implementing this, we could do it in a phased process where we, do our digital signage, the water tower, the larger items first, and, have that kind of trickle effect where we incorporate it within the business as we move forward. Business cards and our letterhead, so the cost would be signage within the city could change over time with a phased approach. But at least to get the new design would be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any discussion on the?
Yeah, just real quick, I wrote the numbers down, Kathy. You said one group, the 99 design is $300 to $1,200?
300 to 1,200, but they have different options. I feel we could do this in the $300 to $500 option range. They have two different packages you could do.
Okay.
You know, they offer, it's a contest within designers within 99 Designs. So you get multiple designers presenting.
And then the next one was $3,000 to $3,500
Yes.
to do a design for us. And
Yes.
then the last one was
$3,250 is the estimate
just a
from the
straight
student design.
number from the student one. Okay.
And all of these, council would have the option to allow community input. We would develop a process for you. It would be a very easy thing to do for all of them. And given the options, we could have 1 to 5 designs. Most of them have said anywhere from 2 to 3 is a good option for you to choose from and to give community input.
So is that an all-encompassing cost for five different designs for 99 designs? We're looking at $300 to $1,200.
Yes.
And then, is that the cost just to use the service? Do we pay an additional cost to the designer that has the winning design?
That's the fee.
Just a flat fee?
Yes.
My vote is 99 design. If we don't like it, we'll get somebody else.
I would agree.
Yeah, and we could, even if we like an aspect of it, but didn't really like it, we could take that and send it to
Improve it,
someone
then
that was,
somebody.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
I'm gonna abstain because I did not realize.
fair enough.
Other than you want to silo.
The request, that's, the request is silo, but
But other than that,
What
you're
we could do,
saying.
we could easily do the silo tonight, just do the city of Corcoran, city of Corcoran, and then a silo right behind it if we have.
exactly, and Arial font 48.
Comic, it's not Comic Sans.
It's got the silo.
It's gotta be Helvetica.
$500.
You see where this is
Coming
headed.
my way. Alan and I will split it.
I think you did bring a good point that we can use them, and if we get something great, great, if not, we can take that and tweak it ourselves or with another designer, whatever, so I would go ahead and make a motion to direct staff to, select 99 Design and proceed forward with the logo updates. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
One abstain.
Oh, yeah, another section 401.
Everyone just submitted it.
Yeah, they're all good. All very good. 9B, the financial guarantee policy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At our April 27th meeting, we discussed some closeout of projects. And part of that discussion, we talked about financial guarantees additionally. And staff took a stab at creating a financial guarantee policy that kind of addresses that time in between when work
can we get a longer warranty period? My only concern is with the trails that we see with buckling from willow growing underneath. It might not manifest within the first year. Or maybe a carve out for that kind of significant failure. Maybe you wouldn't require replacement for cracking, but if there's heaving and that sort of thing, can we get a longer period?
I mean, we're probably in the conservative end right now. I think that would have to be worked through with the attorney, possibly. Where I think the way our system's set up right now, we're protected. I would argue that we're protected to capture a substantial scenario where we have a problem, right? So I think if you look at the first couple editions in some of the older areas, we still have protection, we still haven't entered warranty. So, those things are exposing themselves, under our current system. So I think our current program, if you want to call it that, works. Where it's not working is where the wear course has been down 3 or 4 years. The work is dwindled, they just haven't finished in some cases, and where's the gap below what our ordinance says and maybe what statute says. So I think that, and I think where staff recommended that we pursue, be more proactive in pursuing that gap so it doesn't happen. We have that in our current systems, we just haven't formally directed that, that more persuasive approach, which is completely within the contract and our ordinance to do. So it's more of us just using the levers of our contract and ordinance that we haven't done before. So we're not really proposing to change anything, just formalize from you guys when you want us to bring you up pace, is really all we're doing. And in some cases, on a case-to-case basis, we might have to reduce below the ordinance based on the specific site and what's left, if that makes sense.
But still always maintaining enough.
Yeah, so I would argue that if we proactively, 1 year after wear, brought any issues forward with any addition, and we sent a letter, that would probably reduce the amount of times we ever really have to lower the surety outside of the ordinance. It's because we've kind of been laissez-faire, if that's the right term, where we just let them come to us, and it's kind of, in some scenarios, created that gap. So I don't think we have to blow up the system personally. I think the system works. It's just, let's start applying it. We thought it would work organically, and we might need to make it more mechanical on the backside to encourage people to close out. We want to close them out. If that's how I would categorize what's happening.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may just to add on to that, Councilman Nichols, the 2-year warranty period is a function of the ordinance as well. So that's extended to the development contract per ordinance. So if we were going to reevaluate that standard, we would want to do it in both places. I can tell you from what I've seen, that standard is pretty much what you see. But if there are particular issues that you're seeing outside of that, you can try to negotiate for that. Everything you do, of course, is negotiable about the cost that does result in something like that. But yeah, I think that it would be workable from that point, but I think what Jen is trying to do is that that's not where we're necessarily seeing the problem getting to that point.
Thank you.
Anything else on it? Someone want to make a motion?
I could ask one question, I'm sorry.
No.
Laissez-faire, so
I
what
think
you
that
said?
was the right term, wasn't it? Like nonchalant?
I'm just asking.
From really,
I
I don't know where I pulled that one out, sorry.
Thank you,
Economics.
appreciate it.
Definitely not Green Bay.
Yeah, it just, it opens so many windows and doors for me, I wanted to, it just kind of slid by, and I needed to bring it up, sorry, thank you.
Okay. Someone want to take a crack at a motion to adopt the financial guarantee policy?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Oui.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect, sorry, I missed it.
No, fair enough.
On to new business.
You're so sophisticated.
Every once in a while, I can get out of the
Who
barn
would
and
have known you could just
talk
speak
big.
French so eloquently?
Then that's the only one I know. French fries.
Clearly.
I'm sorry. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
We'll go on to new business. We have a public comment opportunity for just item 10A, which is the only item of new business, and then we'll go on to tonight.
Anyone joining us virtually can press star 9 if you're on a phone, or you can press reactions and raise your hand. Anyone joining us in the audience can come to the podium as well, state your name and address for the record. Mayor and council, at this time, no one is raising their hand.
Okay, we'll go on to tonight.
We do have a few transfers that staff is looking to make after last year's audit. We have some, it just looked like there were a few items that did not get transferred in 2021. So Maggie has prepared her recommendation that does that does outline a few of budgeted transfers that were not completed, as well as some transfers just internally to those new funds that we outlined and created at the last meeting. And then lastly, the last item on the transfers here is an amount of any surplus or unbudgeted or unspent revenues, also known as the surplus, that does do 15% to the asphalt or the pavement management fund and 15% to the long range planning fund. This is consistent with what we've done in years past. And then I just note that one thing that changed a little bit from our approach is that we are retaining, we have a policy to retain at least 35% of fund balance in our account, and so we are keeping that in our general account. So it's changed a little bit. Maggie is joining us virtually if you have questions as well.
Any questions for Maggie?
Can we use any of this to put a shade structure in Wildflower Park?
I think that we could utilize, this would be, any of our funds, if that's something that council would like us to review, certainly could
Maybe down the road.
look at
indirectly.
that as, it is either park dedication or part of the long range planning fund, or
I
our
just thought the
charitable
capital
gambling fund.
improvement. Yeah.
So there would be quite a few areas that we could look at for that.
There was a number of umbrellas donated to cleanup day that we could
Bring up there,
bring out there.
better than nothing. I'd use one.
Would you?
Could make an art structure with them, maybe?
Somebody brought in a bunch of umbrellas.
I don't know.
Stella, somebody else. I don't think we want that in our city park, especially over at Wildflower. They're more wine people. I just had to say it. I'm sorry.
Can Mr. James sit over here?
Jeremy, your concerns for Wildflower and everything are admirable. I think we as a city need to do something to add something to that. And that's all the conversation.
If that's something you'd like us to, maybe let's have Parks and Trails.
I think that'd be great. Could we add that to the Parks and Trails agenda in the near term? They can discuss.
Yeah, that'd be
We
good.
talked about trying to develop some standard park amenities, maybe that's part of the conversation.
But a lot of our focus is growing this one over here.
Maybe not this next one, but the following, we'll have a full, should have a full, group. Perfect. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-43.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have no staff reports. We do have some closed sessions. Thank you. Okay.
You go fall asleep when you read these?
Yeah, it's not as bad as last
All
time.
right.
It's not fun. Under the authority of Minnesota Statute 13D.05, subdivision 3C3, the city is permitted to close a meeting to consider offers and counteroffers for the purchase or sale of real or personal property. The city council is going into closed session to consider an offer for real estate and personal property. The following properties are the subject of the closed meeting: PID 361192333009, PID 361192333010. Upon adjournment of the first closed session, the city council will enter into a second closed session, to discuss an offer for real estate. Under the authority of Minnesota Statute 13D.05 Subdivision 3C3, the city is permitted to close a meeting to consider offers and counteroffers for the purchase or sale of real or personal property. Following properties are the subject of the second closed meeting. PID 3511923420035. Upon adjournment of the second closed session, the city council will enter into a third closed session to discuss threatened litigation. Under the authority of Minnesota Statute 13D.05 Subdivision 3D, the city is permitted to close a meeting for attorney-client privilege to discuss pending litigation.